So these tapes, I'll tell you now who showed it. My brother, we were living in Cairns and my brother was living in Melbourne. He sent me up a kit with the form filled out with a note on it, sign here. Didn't ring me about it or anything like that. He just sent me a kit in the mail with the form all filled out, and he said, with a note, a little yellow note, sticky note, sign here. And I did. Now, that's not the ideal way to show people this concept. Like, a bit expensive if they say, no, I'm not going to sign it. And I wouldn't recommend it. But if someone's looking, you know, and I didn't even tell Lea-Anne that I was looking at it. I had it in my office downstairs, and I told her I was quoting houses to build. And I'd go down there at night, and back in those days, we used to have these big black folders that had all the information in it. And I'd sit there and I'd read all this, and I'm thinking, oh, this looks good. You know, I mean, I don't think we ever sponsored anyone that ever read those books, you know? And I'm looking at this saying, this is good. And then I'd close it all up, put it back in the box, hide it underneath the plans, and then go upstairs and go to bed. And I did that for about 2 weeks, you know. And then Lea-Anne went to Brisbane. I don't know whether one of her sisters was getting married or something. And that's when I signed the form. You know? Gutsy effort. Anyway, these tapes are all made by millionaires out of this concept. And the advantage of the tapes or CDs, is we just signed up on a form to have these things delivered to our house every week at, I think the tapes are about $7.70, and they just come in the mail, and I find that when I'm driving around I can just push them in and listen to it. It's like having a millionaire sitting beside you coaching you how to become one. And like for $7.70. It's like, you know, how much are they worth? They're worth nothing if you don't listen to them. You know, they're not something just to get around your feet, you know, like, get out of there, you know. Like every time I put on the brake, it's like, oh, back under there, you know. I don't know if your car's like that, but it should be. But like when I looked at this is my attitude. It's like I looked at this concept and I'm going, somebody's making money out of these tapes. And so I made it my business. I thought, I'm going to find out who it is. And so I started to check this out, and I was right. Somebody was making money out of the tapes. It was me. I found the more I listened to them, the more I made. And so all these tapes, there is like, don't ever tell me you've heard them all. You haven't listened to hardly any. I don't care if you listen to 3 a day, you haven't even got started. There is so many tapes there. There is stacks of them, and you need to listen to as many as you can. There's tapes to teach you how to do this, and there's tapes that are what we call story tapes. The biggest mistake that people make is that they constantly ask, give me a tape on that'll tell me how to do this. Don't ever fall for that. You want to be listening to twice as many story tapes as there are how-to tapes. Especially when you get these, you know, you think you've sponsored someone that's sharp, and they say, just give me the duck's guts, you know. Well, give him twice as many story tapes, you know. He might get frustrated, but there's a classic case of a person that says, I want the answers. And you're giving them the answers, they're asking the wrong questions. See, that's a classic case of it. So we just found that, we'll put it this way, to have a millionaire sit beside me to teach me how to become one and not use it, I don't relate to it. You know, like I just don't relate to that. The books have nothing to do with the business, but what the books do is they'll teach you how to think like a millionaire. And there's some fantastic books. There's, you know, The Magic of Thinking Big, The Profiles of Success. That is just a book of hundreds of people that have become multi-millionaires out of this concept. And the beauty of that book is you can look up the front and it's got all their occupations before they got involved in this. So like when I go around to see somebody about this concept, and let's say I'm going to see someone and he's an accountant, let's say he's an accountant, I'll stop just around the corner from him and I'll like look up the front and I'll go, accountants. And there's about 15 of them. And it's like, and I'll have a look, read a couple, quickly have a look through for about, 4 or 5 minutes. Right, okay. And then I'll go and show this guy the plan. Now, think about this. I'm a builder. I'm going to show an accountant how to become wealthy. Now, you could excuse the accountant for thinking, what's a builder going to be able to show me? You know, like you could imagine him thinking that. I understand that. I haven't got a problem with that. And the worst thing that I ever want to do is the worst thing that could ever happen is that the person judge the business on me. I never want them to do that. And I suggest you don't want them to do it either. You know, if you're sharp, you don't want them to judge a business on you because they're thinking, well, you can do it, but there's no way I can do it. And if you're like me and you're not too sharp, they're thinking, mate, you need to do it. I don't need to do it. And you won't sponsor them either. You want to pass them over to someone else. You want to be talking about your upline. So when I'll go in and I'll show this accountant and I'll be talking about where this thing's heading and and have a look at this, and I'll just open up a book and here, have a look at this bloke. And the guy will start reading and say, he's an accountant. You know, and I'll go, really? Oh, he is too. Fancy that, you know. Now all of a sudden, this whole program has credibility because another accountant, one of his peers, says that this is a good idea instead of Joe Bloggs the builder. You see that? Or imagine it another way. Imagine if I'm sitting down with someone and last week, last month, last year, they've had an unhappy experience with a builder. Now, some people, they get all bitter and twisted and they think, I had a bad experience with builders, all builders are jerks. You know, and like I've just been thrown I've just been branded, he's a builder, he's out of there. And I won't even know it. I just can't click with these people. That's why I don't want them judging me. And it's easy to handle if they talk about it, but most of them won't even mention it. So that's why I don't want them judging me. So I'll try and find somebody that they relate to, which is somebody that does what they do. Might be a carpenter, might be a joiner, might be, you know, whatever. And so I use that book and I talk about my upline. You know, see, the person might not relate to me. And if he doesn't, he's not the first. And he won't be the last. But that doesn't mean that he can't build this business. So I just don't want him to relate to me. So that is a great book. There's heaps of books. There's a book called, a little blue book called Skill with People. A little book, it costs about $7. It's worth thousands. It's a book that's 32 pages long, 16 chapters. And it is the most awesome book. And for a long time, I highlighted mine, and for a long time when I was going to see people, like, just remember, I'm a builder. We have a different way of communicating with people. And so for a long time, I would go and see people, and when I stopped around the corner, I sort out the profiles, I would have a quick flick through my Skill with People book. It would only take me a minute, 2 minutes just to read my highlights. I reckon a minute, right? And it'd just quickly remind me of things that will help me relate to this person. Just an awesome tool for whatever it costs, $7 or something like that. Now, to have a tool like that that can dramatically increase your success and not use it, I don't relate to it. I don't relate to that. To have a tool like that that can just be worth a fortune to you and leave it sitting on the table and not use it, I just don't relate to that. There's stacks of books, stacks and stacks of books. You know, there's books on, you know, how you can better communicate with your kids. There's books on how you can better communicate with your spouse. There's stacks and stacks of books on every issue, and to not use them is just like, I don't know why you'd make it so hard for yourself. The functions, you know, when I saw this, you know, I said, mate, you could do it. There's no way in the world I could do it. I'm a builder. You know what they're like? They've got a vocabulary of about 6 words and 5 of them aren't real smooth. And this guy said, well, the best thing you can do is get along to a function. And what happened is we went along to the function, and we went along to the function with a huge dose of hope, but we came away from the function with a huge dose of belief. We now knew it worked. I looked at some of the people that were succeeding, didn't necessarily relate to the speaker. I thought, man, they're successful, but that's out of reach for me. But I saw a lot of people that have been in the business, 1, 2 and 3 years, and I thought, if they can do it, I can do it. And that just gave me a huge dose of belief. I knew they're no better than me, I can do that. And so I came away with a lot of belief. And now the question became, was I prepared to do anything about it? Which is, of course, another question altogether. And you might be the same. You might come along and get a huge dose, and now it works, and now you're thinking, can I do it? Well, you can do it. I think the longer that I've been around this, the more I understand that absolutely anybody can do it. And I'll prove it to you. Once you believed that this can work for somebody, once you come to that point that it can work for somebody, now if you don't believe that, there is so much history of success in this thing. Once you believe that it can work for somebody, you've just proved it can work for yourself, because you can find a somebody. You've just got to get out there and look. This is so easy. It's not the idea of going out and convincing people that this is a good idea, because people will go in and out of the looking zone. And if they're not looking, don't waste your time. You'll get frustrated, and they'll be frustrated, and they'll be glad to see the back end of you. This is like catching rabbits. You hide behind a bush and make a noise like a carrot. It's really simple. It's really simple. So the functions are crucial. The help is one of the most amazing parts about this concept, because this gave me a huge amount of... it was like an insurance policy, because once I understood this, the people that we were in business with, the people that were already hugely successful at this, their future success depended upon their ability to help us become successful. Now, in any other industry, when the going gets tough, what do? Jack the Slasher comes out, they get rid of people left, right and centre. In this industry, the future success of the industry is dependent upon the leader's ability to help you become successful. Now, when you understand that, that is like, what an unbelievable insurance policy. That just gave me so much confidence that I was on the right track. Because in every other traditional business that's out there, when the going gets tough, they don't even give a rip. On your bike, see you later, we don't need you anymore. It's ridiculous. But this here, it works exactly the opposite. So the leaders will never make a decision for their own benefit. They will always make it a benefit for the new person, because that is the future of the business. Now, when you understand that, it'll give you a huge dose of confidence. The pattern is the work. So this will teach you how to become successful, and this is the work. Now, if you do this and you don't go and apply the work, you're just like all the other people that go to university and never do anything with their life. They're just educated. Whoopee. And if you do this, if you do all the work, you're still just a motivated idiot if you haven't got any sense knocked into you. And you wouldn't believe it, but there's heaps of people in the business that do all this and don't go and apply any effort. And they're still at zero in this thing. And there's also lots of people that do stacks of this and don't follow that, and they're still at zero. See, one without the other is an absolute waste of time. Absolute waste of time. So the pattern, we have what we call an 8-step pattern. You need to work out, so what you're doing this thing for. And the majority of people skip this process. You must deal with this process. And what we encourage people to do is, if I was talking to you and I'd be saying, look, if we were in Brisbane, I'd say, look, go down to something like just take some time out, take 2 or 3 hours out with your spouse, maybe get the kids looked after or something like that, but don't do this at home. Go to somewhere nice, like if you were in Brisbane, I'd say go to the Hilton, the atrium there, somewhere nice where you have dinner at home and then go out and have a coffee and maybe a dessert or something. But spend 2 or 3 hours working out, so where do we want to be in 5 years' time? We suggest that people make a list like of 100 important things for them, things that they'd like to have, things that they'd like to do, places they'd like to visit, and the sort of person that they'd like to become. Make a list. And you need time to be able to think. You don't just sit down in 5 minutes. Most people spend more time organising a 21st or a wedding than they do organising their life. You need to take some time to do this. Now, what you'll find is when you've got that list, as time goes on, you'll add things to your list. Fantastic.